The night the lights felt different, the theater lights dimmed slowly, like the room itself was taking a deep breath. A soft hush swept across the audience, that magical silence that happens only at the start of a show when anything feels possible. Outside, Los Angeles buzzed with life, but inside the Dolby Theater, nearly 3,000 people sat perfectly still, waiting, hoping, dreaming. Backstage, Emma Reyes pulled her headset into place and exhaled. She had worked AGT for 4 seasons, but tonight felt heavier, more delicate, like her heart was walking on thin ice. The energy backstage was electric, producers rushing with clipboards, contestants pacing nervously, lights blinking, sound engineers shouting instructions. But Emma stood still, grounding herself. This was the first season without Liam. Her younger brother had been her best friend, her partner in every moment that mattered. He had loved AGT with the passion only kids with big dreams have, eyes that sparkled, cheeks stuffed with popcorn, and a laugh that filled the whole room. Tuesday nights at home were sacred. No matter how busy life got, no matter how tired she was, they always watched the show together. Every golden buzzer moment was an event in their house. Liam would jump up, arms flailing, cheering louder than anyone on TV. The stage turns into dreams. He'd shout, it became his motto, but 9 months ago Liam's heart, the same heart that loved music, loved people, loved life, had stopped beating. A condition he fought quietly, bravely, eventually took him away. Emma hadn't stepped foot in the theater since. Yet here she was, backstage, breathing the same air, hearing the same cues, watching the same stage Liam once adored. The ache in her chest pulsed with every memory. She didn't know if she was ready, but she needed to try. The stage manager tapped her shoulder. Emma, first contestant is up. She nodded, pushing down her trembling. Send them over. A young woman approached, clutching her guitar like a lifeline. Her hands shook, her lips trembled, her breaths were too quick. Emma recognized that fear instantly. She'd seen the bravest faces crumble just before stepping onto the stage. It's okay, Emma whispered, her voice soft but steady. Breathe, you've already made it this far. You belong here. The woman nodded, tears forming. Relief tears, the kind that appear when someone finally speaks kindness into your panic. Emma gave her a gentle smile, the same smile she used to give Liam when his hospital machines beeped too loudly, when his strength ran low, when he needed to believe everything would be okay. Go shine, Emma said. The contestant stepped onto the stage, the lights shifted, the judges looked up, the music began, the girl's voice rose, and Emma felt something she hadn't felt in months. Warmth, not grief, not loneliness, not exhaustion. Actual warmth, like a hand gently resting on her shoulder. She closed her eyes for a brief second. Liam, she whispered, if you're watching, help me get through this. The performance ended to thunderous applause. The judges were moved. The audience cheered. The girl cried as she walked offstage, overwhelmed with joy. Emma handed her a tissue, smiling through the faint sting of her own tears. Little did she know that tonight wouldn't be just another episode. Tonight would bring 5 golden buzzer acts, each one a reminder that humanity was still capable of beauty, each one a spark, each one a lesson, and by the end of the night, Emma wouldn't just help people reach their dreams. She would begin to rediscover her own. 5 lives, 5 stories, 1 stage act 1. The homeless choir, the first group Emma greeted backstage, called themselves the Sunlight Singers, a name they had chosen because they wanted to sing like the morning sun touches everything, even the forgotten corners of the world. They arrived nervously, dressed in donated shirts and worn jackets, each carrying a piece of their life story in the lines of their faces. One man, maybe in his 40s, clutched a folded piece of paper. Emma smiled kindly. Is that your lyrics sheet? He nodded. I read them before every performance. Reminds me I matter. That sentence tugged at her heart. When they stepped onto the stage, the audience grew quiet. 17 individuals, different ages, different past, standing side by side, united. The judges watched, curiosity mixing with compassion. What made you want to audition? Simon asked. A woman with long silver braids stepped forward. Her voice shook, but only at first. We all lived on the streets. Some of us still do. But when we sing, we remember we're human. We wanted to show the world that even when life breaks you, your voice can still rise. The lights dimmed, the music began, and their voices lifted in perfect harmony, soft at first, then rising like a sunrise breaking through the clouds. They sang about forgiveness, dignity, second chances. Their voices came from places most people never saw, under bridges, in shelters, on sidewalks where hope often felt like a stranger. By the last note, something powerful happened. People stood. People cried. People felt. Heidi hit the golden buzzer with a trembling hand. Gold poured down like a blessing. Backstage, Emma pressed her hand over her heart. "That one was for you, Liam," she whispered. "He always said music could heal anything." Act 2. The boy who couldn't speak next was Aidan Clark, a 10-year-old boy with gentle eyes and a small communication device resting against his chest. His mother held his shoulders as if anchoring him to courage. Emma kneeled beside him. "Are you excited?" He typed quickly. The device spoke, scared but ready. His honesty made Emma smile. Liam had been honest like that too. On stage, Aidan introduced himself through the device. "What will you be doing for us?" Sofia asked gently. He typed again. "Singing." The audience gasped. A child who hadn't spoken in 2 years was going to sing. The music started. Hallelujah, soft and slow. And then, miracle, Aidan opened his mouth and sang, a fragile voice at first, trembling like a small candle flame, then stronger, clearer, beautiful. His mother sobbed backstage. Gemma held her shoulders as the woman cried into her hands. The entire theater held its breath as the final note faded, floating like a prayer. Simon leaned forward, his voice unusually soft. "Aidan, that was one of the bravest things I've ever seen." He pressed the golden buzzer. The audience roared. Aidan cried. His mother collapsed to her knees. Gold rained like the universe applauding his courage. Emma wiped her tears again. "Liam, you would have loved him." Act 3. The firefighter with a cello, brief continuation from the original, keeping balance Marcus Hale, walked on stage carrying a burnt cello, the scars visible just like his own. He explained how the instrument survived the same fire that almost killed him. When he played, every note held a story: sirens, flames, rescue, fear, hope. His music wasn't just sound, it was memory, pain, and rebirth woven together. When Howie pressed the golden buzzer, the gold reflecting off Marcus's scars created a sight Emma would never forget. 3 golden buzzers already, 3 stories of courage. Emma felt something shifting inside her, like a door slowly opening after months of being locked. Tonight wasn't just a show, it was humanity singing. The night changes. The atmosphere inside the theater shifted as the next contestant stepped into the lights. It wasn't nerves this time, it wasn't stage fright. It was something else, a quiet heaviness, like the room itself sensed something important was about to happen. Her name was Priya Nandani, a 16-year-old girl with trembling hands and a notebook hugged tightly to her chest. She didn't carry an instrument, she didn't wear a costume, she didn't look like someone prepared to perform. Emma noticed it immediately. Priya's eyes weren't filled with excitement, they were filled with something deeper, something delicate, something wounded. "You okay?" Emma asked softly. Priya nodded, but it was the kind of nod that broke your heart instead of reassuring it. When she walked onto the stage, the judges leaned in, sensing her fragility. "What's your talent, sweetheart?" Heidi asked kindly. Priya shook her head. "I'm not here to perform," she whispered. The audience murmured. A few judges exchanged glances. The lights seemed to steady, focusing on a small frame. "I'm here to say thank you." The room fell silent. Priya opened her notebook with shaky fingers, revealing a page with messy handwriting and tear-stained edges. Her voice trembled as she read. "1 year ago, I planned to end my life." Gasps rippled across the theater. Priya swallowed hard, tears forming. "I was standing on a bridge. I felt alone. I felt invisible. I felt done." She wiped her cheek quickly, trying to stay composed. "And then a stranger grabbed my arm. The screen behind her suddenly lit up with security footage, grainy black and white video of a man pulling a girl back from the railing. The audience held its breath. "That stranger saved me," Priya whispered. "He held my hand until I could breathe again. He told me, 'Stay, the world hasn't used up your light yet.'" Her voice cracked. "I never learned his name. I never got to thank him. So, I'm here tonight, hoping he's watching, hoping he hears me. Thank you for giving me another sunrise." Simon's eyes softened, an expression he rarely wore. "Do you know anything else about him?" he asked gently. Priya shook her head, only that he wore a blue jacket. Suddenly, movement rippled through the audience. A man stood up, a man in a blue jacket. Priya froze, the cameras whipped toward him, her breath hitched. The man's voice trembled across the theater. "It was me," he said. "I didn't know you survived." Priya covered her mouth. The entire audience erupted with disbelief, joy, shock, hope, all at once. The man walked toward the stage, tears streaming. "I'm so glad you're here," he whispered. Priya sobbed and ran into his arms. The whole theater stood. Because in a world so often divided, here was a moment of pure humanity. A stranger who saved a life and a girl who found her light again. Howie's voice shook as he leaned forward. This is why we're here. This is what humanity looks like." And with one emotional slam, the golden buzzer exploded. Gold confetti showered the stage, falling over Priya and the man who saved her. The lights glowed warmer, brighter, like the universe itself was wrapping around them. Backstage, Emma pressed her trembling fingers to her lips. This wasn't just a twist in the show. This was a twist in her heart. Because in that moment, watching a stranger save a girl's life, she realized something she had forgotten in her grief. There was still goodness in the world. There were still people worth believing in. There was still light, Liam's light, everywhere, and for the first time in a long, long while. Emma felt hope stir inside her again. The act that broke the night open the evening had already been overflowing with emotion. 3 golden buzzers gone, hearts cracked open, the audience exhausted from crying and cheering. Emma felt like her own soul had been stretched thin, pulled toward something she couldn't yet name. But then a quiet knock on the backstage door. A young girl peeked inside, holding a tiny suitcase decorated with stickers of galaxies, stars, and glowing moons. She couldn't have been more than 7. She was small, fragile, looking with a bright yellow dress that fluttered when she walked. "Hi," she whispered. "I'm Luna." Emma crouched down to her height. "Hi, Luna. Are you here to audition?" Luna nodded, clutching her suitcase tighter. "My daddy says I'm ready." Her father stepped forward. He looked tired in the way people look after carrying grief too heavy for one heart. He held a small photo in his hand. Emma noticed the girl's resemblance to the woman in the picture. That woman wasn't with them. Emma understood instantly. "Good luck," she whispered, squeezing Luna's tiny hand. When Luna walked onto the stage, the entire room melted into softness. The judges leaned forward, their smiles gentle. "What will you be doing for us?" Sofia asked warmly. Luna opened her suitcase. Inside was a small light-up keyboard, stickers peeling from the corners, keys missing their letters. "I'm going to play Mommy's song," Luna said. The audience went still. "Where's your mommy?" Heidi asked softly. Luna swallowed. "She's in the sky. But Daddy says when I play her song, she comes to listen." A hush spread across the theater, so quiet that even the lights seemed to dim themselves out of respect. Luna sat, placed her tiny fingers on the keys, took a shaky breath, and began to play. The melody was simple, childlike, pure, but it wasn't the music that held the world still. It was the emotion behind each note. A child playing the only song her mother ever wrote for her. A memory turned into sound, a love turned into light. Halfway through, Luna began to sing. Her voice trembled at first, then grew steadier, like she was remembering her mother's embrace, her lullabies, her warmth. She said the stars will always shine, and you, my love, will always find your way back home to me. Tears spilled across faces in every row. Her father stood backstage, sobbing silently into his hands. Emma placed a trembling hand on his back as he cried, not out of weakness, but because watching your child reach for heaven with her voice was too powerful for any parent to hold alone. On stage, Luna finished her final note with a whisper, the whisper of a child speaking to an angel. When the last sound faded, the theater didn't erupt, it didn't cheer, it didn't scream, it breathed, as if every person had been holding their breath and only now remembered how to release it. Simon wiped his eyes, something he rarely allowed himself to do on camera. "Luna," he said, voice cracking, "tonight, your mother heard you." Luna smiled, a soft, innocent smile that glowed brighter than the stage lights. Then Simon stood, both hands trembling, his jaw tight. His eyes glassy, he slammed the golden buzzer. The theater exploded. Gold rained down like stardust, like the sky itself had cracked open and showered Luna with her mother's love. The confetti caught in her hair, her dress, her eyelashes, turning her into a tiny, glowing angel on stage. Her father ran out to hold her, the audience stood, people hugged, people wept, and backstage Emma broke, not from grief, not from pain, but from realization. Love never dies, it just changes form, and tonight it had taken the shape of a child playing her mother's song. Emma covered her mouth and sobbed, but for the first time in months. They were healing tears. The moment the final note faded, it felt as if the world had stopped breathing. The stage, moments ago trembling with sound and electricity, now stood in a hush so deep it was almost holy. For the members of Lightwire who had always performed in tiny community stages and behind school curtains, this silence was the kind that made their eyes sting with tears. It wasn't emptiness, it was awe. The audience didn't erupt right away. They stared, stunned, trying to comprehend what they had just witnessed. The glowing phoenix that had burst into light, the flickering wings that folded into the shape of a heart, the burning trail of hope they had left hovering above the stage, and intertwined in every motion was something deeper: grief, struggle, loss, love, and rebirth. Then, like a fuse being lit, it began. A single clap, then another, then the entire auditorium exploded. The cheers rose like thunder. People shot to their feet, hands flying into the air, tears streaming down faces. Even the ushers in the aisles were clapping, some with shaky hands as they wiped their eyes. It was the kind of standing ovation that didn't feel polite or forced. It felt primal, inevitable, unstoppable. Backstage screens flickered with the faces of the judges. Heidi looked stunned, her hands pressed over her mouth. Howie was shaking his head in disbelief. Sofia was crying openly, mascara smudging as she whispered, this is magic." And Simon Cowell, sat absolutely still. He wasn't leaning back into his chair like he normally did. He wasn't wearing that half-smirk that suggested he'd seen everything already. Instead, he leaned forward, elbows on his knees, eyes locked on the stage as though searching each glowing shape for answers. On stage, the crew of Lightwire stood breathless, looking out at the roaring crowd. Some cried quietly. Some held the glowing rods at their sides like they were sacred artifacts. Their leader, Zara, shook so hard she had to grip the shoulder of the dancer next to her just to stay standing. Then Simon finally stood up, slowly, deliberately. The audience saw it first and screamed even louder. Simon raised a hand, not for silence, but because he seemed almost overwhelmed. This, he began, his voice softer than expected, was one of the most stunning, imaginative, and emotionally powerful performances I have ever seen on this stage. The light wire dancers froze. Even the crowd quieted to catch every word. "What you just did," Simon continued, "was not simply dance. It was storytelling. It was art. It was heart, and I felt every second of it. In fact..." He paused and looked down at the golden buzzer button. The audience shrieked, "I think the world needs your light right now." His hand lifted, Zara's breath hitched. All 10 performers clasped each other's hands in a line, trembling uncontrollably. Simon pressed the button. The golden buzzer exploded like a sun. Confetti burst from the ceiling in a shimmering storm of gold. The stage lights refracted off the glittering pieces, turning the entire auditorium into a universe made of falling stars. Zara screamed, not in fear, but joy so powerful she fell to her knees. Her team collapsed around her, hugging, crying, shaking, laughing through tears as the golden snow rained down. The music swelled. The judges stood. The crowd roared like a tidal wave crashing through the arena. For Light Wire, who had once performed in borrowed costumes made of thrift store wires and tape, this moment felt like stepping directly into a dream they weren't sure they would ever reach. But here they were, bathed in light, bathed in gold, bathed in belief. Their art had found its home, their story had found its wings, and tonight, because Simon Cowell pressed a single button, Light Wire finally lit up the world.